Okay, so we're going to take a few minutes. We're going to get our calculators out. If we have one, which we're supposed to have one, we're going to get it out. If we don't have one, then we better lean over next to our neighbor. If neither of you has one, then that's really bad. But move your chair, find somebody that has one, so at least you can watch as we go along. This is all video. When you get a calculator, you'll have to go back through the video and work along, because I'm not reteaching this, all right? You gotta have a calculator. So find a friend, and here we go. By the way, those of you with the new calculators, I call these new because mine's like 15 years old. The rechargeable ones, the ones that you can charge, those, I have a charger over here that will handle a 10 at a time, I think. So if there's ever a day that you know, oh my gosh, my calculator's dead, you can bring it in here before school, pop it in the charger, and by the time you come to class, it'll be ready. Okay? Now, obviously, when you bought the calculator, you got a charger, so you should be charging it yourself at home. But if you forget, we do have these handy-dandy chargers over here. If you have the standard old battery-operated calculator like I have, the old-fashioned ones, then just put batteries in it when it stops working. Okay? All right. We're going to solve graphically on our calculator. There are lots of ways to solve equations, but sometimes the equation is so complicated, we don't have the skills it takes to solve it. So our only way of solving it is draw a picture of it and figure it out from there. Now this equation is not difficult. You could all solve this one maybe by using the quadratic formula. That sound familiar? We're going to practice that a little bit. But you could all do it. We are going to solve it graphically, which means we're going to let our calculator draw a picture of it. This does not look like this, but let's say we had some equation, we graphed it, and we got a picture that looked like this. This one will not look like that. But let's say we did. These would be the points that we are looking for. Those are the solutions to the equation. Those are the points where the equation equals 0, so they are called the zeros of the function. Okay, these are all the zeros of the function. Zeros are x-intercepts, where we cross the x-axis. Okay, so we're going to do this one on our calculator. So I'm going to pretend like you've never seen your calculator before in your life. I know you have. But the on button's right down here at the bottom where I'm pointing. We're going to turn it on. First thing we're going to do, because I don't know what you have been doing with your calculator or what someone else has been doing with your calculator, I'm going to have you go to Window, which is right here. This top row of buttons is very, very important. That's why it's in the top row. Go to Window, and the window tells you how big your coordinate axis is. So the standard is -10 to 10. That's the standard. I don't know how yours is set. You can manually adjust X min, X max, Y min, Y max. Don't worry about any of the rest of them. Those are the 4 that we care about, the mins and the maxes. You can manually adjust those, or you can press the zoom button, find the button called zoom, and go down to 6, zoom 6, and that will automatically adjust your window to look like this. This is the standard window. So zoom 6, zoom standard, will give you this window. And this is how I want us to start, only because we're all looking at the same thing. There's nothing magical about it. You could do everything with different size windows, but I want everybody's picture to be the same, so we can talk about it. Okay? So our window's set. So now we're going to go to y equals, right here, that top row, that's where we go. Our top row does everything for us. Y equals. And if you have something already in there, would you clear it out? So just clear clear. Get rid of those equations. I have 2 of them in there, so I need to clear them both out. Yours might be empty already. So you should have nothing now except y equals, right? Now, we're gonna put in this equation. Your calculator won't graph unless you have entered it as y equals. So we're gonna put in y equals x squared. Your variable button is right next to your alpha button. This is your variable button. Look where my little my pointer finger is here. That is your variable button. It has on it, it says x and t and theta and different things. Those are your variables. So if you want to put in an x, that's the button you press. So press it. Now it says x. Your squared button is right here along the side. This is your squared button. Hit it. Now it says x squared. Everybody good? Got x squared? So now we're going to do plus, you know where the plus is, and then 7x, back to your variable, and then minus 3. So now our equation is there. Top row again, the very last button says graph. Go ahead and press graph. And it is going to graph your equation. Now, please do not panic. Does yours look something like this?
Yep.
Now, some people freak out because I can't see the bottom. You know what? You're right, you can't. And if you want to see the bottom, I'll tell you how to see the bottom. But is the bottom the important part of this picture?
No.
What's the important part? Here and here, right? So I really don't care about this. Now later on, we'll be doing problems where we need the minimum value. Then I would care about that point. But right now I don't. So I'm not going to worry about not seeing it. Okay, so I got my picture, all graphed. Now I need to find, I can only find one at a time, so I'm going to find this one. All right, so I want you to do this officially. I don't want this zooming and tracing crap. I want you to do it. I can't pay out a lot of money for this. Let's use it the way we're supposed to. So, again, we're going to go to that top row of buttons. We're going to press second calc. Now that's the trace button. So we're going to press second trace. That brings us into the calc menu. Okay? Now there's a whole bunch of stuff, isn't there, in that calc menu? Which one do you think we want if we are finding this point right here?
0.
0. So I like 0. We'll go down to 0 and press enter. Now, first thing you should notice is there should be a cursor somewhere in your picture. You see something flashing? Hopefully?
Yes.
Okay. You want the cursor. The calculator is talking to you. It's saying, where do you want me to set my left bound? Well, if you are finding this point, you need your left bound to be set somewhere over here. Think of this is the left side of that point. So you need your cursor to be set somewhere over here. No special place, just move it over there using your arrow buttons. You can only arrow left and right. So arrow, I got to arrow a long ways to get my cursor over on the left side of that point. Okay, so my cursor is now flashing up here. So I press enter. On my calculator, it puts a little thing in like this to tell me where I set it. On the new calculators, you actually get a line, don't you?
Yeah.
Which is very nice. Remember, if this is going to work, your line or your arrow thing has to be to the left of the point I'm looking for. All right, now, what's calculator say now?
Right.
Where do you want my right bound? So now you're going to move your cursor again. Now, kids, don't move it too far. This point, we can't mess with him right now. So move it over here somewhere, to the right of this point. So I'm going to move it. My arrow buttons. Move it to the right of that point. Press enter. Now, mine put this up, yours maybe put a line. Is the point you're looking for in between your two lines? That's the key. If it's not, this isn't gonna work. You gotta make sure your point's in between those two lines. Now what does it say? Yes. So what it's asking you is, where do you think it is? The point you're looking for. Just move the cursor so it's between the lines or between the arrow. Now you can try to get on that point if you want, but you don't need to do that. Just move the cursor so it's somewhere in between your two markers. Press enter, and you will come up with a 0. What does it say? Negative 7.4. So one of your roots is negative 7.4. That's this one right here. Now we're half done because we still need to find the other one. So we start all over. Second calc. Go down to 0 and press enter. Now where do you think I want to move my cursor? I'm looking for this point. I need to move my cursor over here somewhere. Right? I want to be to the left of this point. So I'm going to move it over here somewhere. Using my arrow buttons. And then I need to move it over here somewhere. And then I need to move it somewhere in between there. And what did you get for that one? 0.4. I round it off. 0.405, 1, 2, da 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 da. How many got those? People are awesome. Did you do this last year?
Yeah.
God bless those teachers. They are amazing. All right, then we should be able to do the next one real handily. X squared minus x equals 8. What are you going to do with that? So she says, I want to put it equal to 0 because if I put it equal to 0, I will do it exactly like this one. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? All right, let's do it. Let's do it. If you don't know how, lean over and ask your neighbor. Anybody get answers? Mr. Eisenman?
I got negative 2.3 and 3.37.
Negative 2.37
Yeah.
and positive 3.37?
Yep.
You'll, on the test or something, there'll be directions about how to round it. So, last time we did tens, this time we did hundreds. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Are you getting those points? That's the important part. Okay. All right, good. So we are all set with the calculator. You guys are amazing. All right, number 2, solve by extracting square roots. That is just a fancy way of saying, take the square root of both sides. This isn't hard, I don't have much to add, except to remind you that when you take the square root of both sides, you have to include the plus or minus. Think about the two equations that we just grabbed. They were squared equations. Didn't they have two answers? Squared equations have to have two answers. So that second answer comes because of the plus or minus part. Okay, so did you get plus or minus 4/3? You're amazing. All right, how about B? What's gonna be different about B, if anything? I heard someone say something, but I couldn't hear it.
Don't you have to isolate the squared part?
Yeah, we wanna divide both sides by 3 to get started. Doesn't that make sense to everybody? It's like getting your variable by itself. Get that parentheses by itself. Now, what happens when I square root x plus 1 squared? I get x plus 1. And when I square root this, I get plus or minus root 3. Your job is to solve for x. So I always put my number first, but if you said plus or minus root 3 minus 1, that is fine too. It does not matter. Two answers. All right, on your own. Would you try C and D? C and D. I've got C done, I could be wrong though, so look it over for me. I don't know what your preference is. I went ahead and just split this into two separate equations and solved each one because I had so much going on here. So I took the square root. Is that okay? This one's a mess. This one's very messy because to start, I will divide by 2, right? I'm not gonna make that 3.5, I'm gonna leave it 7/2 because I have to deal with the square root of it without a calculator. So when I square root, I get x plus 1 equal to plus or minus the square root of 7/2. So I'm going to subtract the 1. But what about the square root of 7/2? This is not good, Katie.
I'm trying to figure out how to do it, but don't you have to get the 2 out of the denominator?
You have to get the radical out of the denominator, yeah. So, Katie and everybody else, this is the square root of 7 over the square root of 2. When you have the square root fraction, you can take the square root of the top and the bottom. There's a rule that says no radicals in the bottom. Remember that rule? Who remembers how to get rid of that? What do we do to get rid of that? Charlie?
You just square it.
No, we don't want to square it because that will change the value of the fraction. It's a good idea, but illegal. Kara?
You multiply both, like the top and the bottom by root 2.
Exactly. Because Charlie, if I do this, I'm not changing my fraction. That's like multiplying by 1. So now I'll have -1 plus or minus. Okay, what's the square root of 7 times the square root of 2? Square root of 14. What's the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? 2. So Katie, I'm not really getting rid of the 2, I'm getting rid of the fact that it's under a radical. Messy. Good review though. Any issue with that? All right, so at this point, P5 is all about solving. So at this point, we have solved by graphing. So we all know how to do that because Hollis and Ludington are amazing. You know how to do that. You put a dot, you're looking for where we cross the x-axis, right? Those are the places where our answers come. We know how to solve by taking the square root of those sides. Now we're going to solve by completing the square. I do not have a good copy. Is that a plus 12? All right. Who remembers how this works? We're going to get this problem done. Completing the square. Step 1. Move that 12 to the other side. Whatever that number is, move it to the other side. Notice I left a blank here. That was on purpose. The 12 is a bad number. I need to find the good number that I can add to both sides. My goal is to make this side a perfect square. So I need to find the number here that's going to make this whole trinomial a perfect square. Meg?
Don't you divide -8 by 2 and then square that?
Exactly. So you take half of your b term, that's right here, your linear term, your x term, half of your x term, and you square it. And that is your special number. So what's half of 8? 4 squared is 16. Now, before you say, Mrs. Ford, that's a -8, you're right. But since I'm going to be squaring the result, do I really need to worry about the negative? No. You can if you want, it doesn't matter, but it's gone. This side then becomes x minus 4 squared. If you factored it, it would be x minus 4 squared. If you factored this guy, x minus 4, equal to 4. That equation looks just like that one, only it's easier. We're going to take the square root of both sides. So x minus 4 equals plus or minus 2. Oh, hang on. So x equals 4 plus or minus 2. So my answers are 4 plus 2, 6, 4 minus 2, 2. All right, I know that was fast. We'll do more next time. Have a great weekend. Good luck to anybody doing anything like games or spelling bees or whatever. Good luck.